list of the LVNopen, the Drukari, that made it all the way till the end. I've got a special guest talking about the list that he concocted in the depths of the Dark City. Let's begin. Hello and welcome everyone to this very special impromptu live video after the LVNopen, which was a charity event that happened this weekend with participation from a global and worldwide community of gamers where we raised money for COVID relief. We raised over 7,000 American dollars, and it was a success around the entire world. That pitted the best of the best in our industry and what we do, and it was such a rush and such an honor to be a part of that. Today, I have a special guest, and we are talking about Drukari, Dark Eldar, the list that made it to the LVO Nopen finals. JT from Play on Tabletop, welcome.
Hello, my fellow denizens of Kamara.
I'm so excited. I'm sitting here with Archon Skari himself, who stares at me from a nice little point in his... oh, yeah.
That's so cool.
I know. I had a friend of mine made it for my birthday out of clay. It's literally out of clay, and I've been painting it on my stream. It's been so fun.
That's fantastic.
It looks cool, eh?
That looks really cool.
It's my Archon in effigy. So let's kind of talk a little about the LVNopen first. We'll set the stage and we'll chat about it. You know, we physically had players from Australia, from England, from Canada, from the US, you know, come together in this sort of very interesting format tournament where, because of COVID, you know, we can't just have a hotel and all hang out together. We had to, you know, it was developed. You know, Peter the Falcon and Val were huge proponents of what was going on, and Frontline Gaming, you know, that, hey, there was no Vegas, so why don't we do something instead? And they reached out to a lot of us content creators and were like, let's each of you make a list and you play against each other, and then the list sort of gets passed on from person to person, round to round, essentially, and eventually there'll be a winner. But it's really like the list goes through so that you don't mix people, basically, and it was really cool. Lo and behold, the Dark Eldar make the finals. Oh my god, I'm still giddy about it.
Oh, I was almost dancing.
I know.
The game 3, without spoiling anything, my wife came into my game room 4 times. She's like, "Are you calling me?" I'm like, "No, I'm just yelling at the camera at the screen." It's so exciting.
Oh my goodness! I was looking at my phone. I had my phone, my earpiece in. I was just like pacing. I swear, upstairs, just doing laps of my house because I was so invested in this game, being like, "Vect, god damn it!"
Oh yeah, the chat in that game was pretty lively.
Oh my goodness! By the way, we're talking about the game of Tabletop Titans, where Brian Pullen played Jay. We'll get to the format in a second, but oh my goodness, yeah.
Oh, it was so good. It was so good. They're blasters, not fusion, man. Brian. Blasters, not fusion.
Yeah, he kept on going fusion. I'm pretty sure he thought they were 12 inches too. It's like, no, it's a 6-inch, terrible 6-inch pistol. You have to get like so close. Oh my goodness, I love it. So, okay, So let's dive in to the actual LVNopen stuff. Okay. So the LVNopen, they had this whole website and whatnot, and it was like the event info was this huge. I don't know if the charity is still going. However, the Las Vegas Open, they had this whole website, huge thing. We had a whole bunch of stuff going on. We had a whole schedule that happened from Friday afternoon. I'm so happy I got to play with Dustin from the Stutter Scrub in like a showcase match in the like exhibition round. Drukari versus Tyranids. That was really, really fun. Very entertaining to kind of, wet everybody's palate to the wonderfulness that was to come. And then we went into the actual like tournament and the brackets and stuff, right? So we had, Vanguard Tactics with a table. We had Tabletop Titans. We had The Art of War. We had Play on Tabletop. You guys.
Yep.
We had some of the Down Under folks from Australia, right? Yep. Down Under again. We had another Art of War, and of course Hellstorm Wargaming Mikey and his crew, yep. Right? So it was a who's who, a plethora of just players from and channels and players from all over the world, which was amazing. Like that alone, just getting all of us to stay up late and get up early and coordinate streams. And oh my goodness, I cannot wait for something like this to happen in the future. It's going to be great. It's going to be
I think so too, yeah. Fun. I agree.
Mm-hmm. And then let's talk about the list. So I wanted to say that your list across platforms was, by no joke, was considered like the ultimate underdog list.
Yes.
Dark Eldar are not exactly an army that's considered to be S tier, right? Is that the thing? Like the shit, right?
Yeah. It's not even that. I mean, what are we? How low do the tiers go?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
We rate right above unaligned, don't we?
Unaligned, Drukari, right? Gellerpox infected.
Elucidian Star Striders.
Yeah, the Star Striders. Just as a faction, right?
Yeah.
And honestly, it was like, well, let's go over the list because, for and foremost, I really, really, really liked seeing your list in action. It was awesome. It was really cool. I really enjoyed it. It's a triple patrol detachment, so anybody who's been watching any Dark Eldar battle reports at all knows that is the only way to build a Dark Eldar army right now. That's worth its salt. And you, of course, were using Cabal of Blackheart, and instead of doing one patrol of Dark Technomonsters, Masters of Mutagen, you decide to run a double patrol of Masters of Mutagen for more troops, basically, for more racks, more hex rifles, that sort of thing, right? So go over your list. Explain to me what thought process went into it. Is it just models you had lying around just so you could use them? Is this what you've been playing recently? What do you like? What shortfalls do you feel the list has?
Cool. So I called it the panoply of provocation because it's annoying to fight. I set out with the object of how do I score as many points as I can, because our army can really do that well. We can lose everything and we can still score. So I decided to try to think, okay, let's work backwards. How do I score as many secondary points as I can? So in the Cabal of Blackheart is the basics. It's an Archon with a power sword and a blast pistol, and then 5 Cabalite warriors, and then the Court of the Archon, which I think is really magic for us right now. It's 3 infantry non-character models that are just action monkeys, kind of like the Furies in Chaos lists. They're action 100%. Monkeys. So they're going to score me my line break, my scramblers. That's their job. For 1 command point, the Cabalites and all 3 of those models go into strategic reserve and walk on from a board edge on turn 2, 3. But then the Technomancer Mutagen is where most of the oomph and, let's face it, the objective secured is, because the one thing my list had over almost every other list is objective secured in spades, and it really played out a lot.
And lots. And, and it's funny because me as a Dark Eldar player, I understand the value of that list building format. you as a Dark Eldar player, you've built your list using that as a strength, especially in 9th edition. And the list plays very much as in, I have little 5 strong units of infantry that are OBSEC. You get onto objectives. I sacrifice 5 guys to stop you from scoring any primary points. And then I shoot a target and I nuke something, right? Yep. And then I stop you from scoring again and I nuke something else, right? And then what happens is you end up losing most of your army throughout the course of the game, but your opponent hasn't scored any points, right? And then you just get points here, points there. You saturate the table. You get your scramblers. Nick, I'll tell you, scramblers, the easiest thing you can do with this list. How did you mess this up?
Oh yeah, that was good.
Anyway, we'll talk about that when we get to those. But holy moly! By the way, we are in chat. We'll be going through questions and stuff. You will get a chance to ask JT some questions. We'll do that in a second. So make sure that you stay tuned as well for all that too. Make sure you leave a like for the Drukari, because we feed off of people's soul energy. Yeah, there we go.
Of course we do. Yes.
That works. 100%. Okay, so something I wanted to go over is sort of like the list itself, specifically. So what was in your list?
So the Patrol of the Blackheart was Archon, Cabal, and Court. Or Archon, Cabalites, and Court. The first Technomancer patrol was the Homunculus, of course, Alliance of Agony, because I want him to be able to heal and be, if he needs to be combat, he can do it. But he has a Hex Rifle and Electric Corrosive Whip. Actually, that's a female model in my list. Electric Corrosive Whip, Master Regeneratus, and Nightmare Doll. So in combat, it can be really, really scary. And then we go 3 racks, all in Venoms, double cannon, because overcharging poison. Marines, it's built to fight Marines, so Marines will fail saves eventually, and 2 damage is good. So that's a big part of it. From there, there's the Scourges, the deep striking blaster Scourges, 2 squads of those, and then the Mandrakes as well, which can also force line break, which can also force targets, which are just more of an annoyance for an opponent to deal with. And utility, the list has 8 drops potentially that come in from reserve. The second patrol, I believe, is where I put my Reapers. So I forgot the Ravagers and the Blackheart, of course, because rid of Living Muse, reroll 1s and reroll 1s with Ravagers. With
they're expensive. They went down 5 points from like Star 9th edition to this. Of course, this goes without saying. We are just about to get our new Dark Eldar Codex.
Yes.
In 3 weeks. So everything you're watching at right now or looking at, potentially the points might be the same, but the rules are not going to be the same. And I'll tell you, this was a great sort of like way to go out in style.
For sure.
Okay, so what was in your other detachments?
So we had the Ravagers in the Blackheart, so they can get the Feel No Pain. But the magic sauce in the list, every Akathist on every rack had a Hex Rifle, and with the new FAQ ruling, you can shoot from in your Venoms. So overcharging Hex Rifles at AP1, 2 damage, and mortal wounds on a 5 is just an annoyance.
Yep, and it doesn't kill the Sergeant if you overheat, which was was always a big annoyance. Now you can actually just have another dude pick up the rifle. He passes out.
Now he's a Sergeant. Yeah, it's like old school tactical Marines used to get, right? You just take out a model and somebody picks it up in the head cannon anyway.
Yeah.
But it's the Reapers. The Reapers were absolute rock stars in my list. I had 2 Dark Technomancer Reapers at 170 points each, give or take.
Yep.
Their ability to not only overcharge and hit a strength 8 or toughness 8 target and wounded on 3s, or a toughness 7 target and wounded on 2s, but the blast profile of 2d6 and 2 damage when it's overcharged just can put so much firepower out. Like if you poke your head out, suddenly you're taking D6, strength 8, AP4, D3 plus 4 potential damage each. I mean, I will pop a Rhino every turn. It's almost a given.
Minimum 5 damage, right?
Which minimum 5.
And against things like New Death Guard, which, they're -1 damage. A Reaper don't care. He's doing 4 damage. Every failed save is going to nuke a Blightlord Terminator. Every failed save is going to nuke a Death Shroud. Every failed save is going to do 4 or force 4 Feel No Pains minimum on Morty, right? Like it will do some work, right?
Yeah, it absolutely does.
Oh, I love them. I've got my 2 Reapers. They're sitting right up here by my
Nice.
Tantalus, right? And they're such a cool model too. And you have
Yeah.
the old school converted, like with old Raiders, and it just shows you us OGs. We have models from like way too far
Way
away.
back. My whole army is, I think, with the exception of maybe a couple of parts of the Cabalites, I think my entire army
And the
is
Venoms,
actually
because there
converted.
were
And the
no
Venoms.
Venoms.
Yeah.
Unless you did the old like Harlequin conversion with the Viper and the little Raider panel at the back,
No,
right?
I don't. But I do have from a good friend of mine, Al Beliveau out at the boardroom guys in Grand Forks, gave me the canopy off of one of the old metal Harlequin jet bikes.
Oh, nice. That's
So you
amazing.
can't find those anymore.
Nope.
But I'm pretty handy with making molds out of that stuff. So there will be showing up some big laughing jester faces on parts of my army soon, I think. Just because it
Love it.
looks so cool. Maybe a new prow on one of my Reapers, have that figurehead. I think that would be kind of neat.
With the thing coming out of its mouth, being like,
Yeah,
I'm gonna spit
yeah,
at you, and it's going to hurt.
yeah. I think it's gonna be good.
Yeah.
But I love that part of the hobby because I love my Dark Eldar, and I have a hard time calling them Drukari, even though they're called that now. I've
Yes.
loved them for 30 years. Evil space pirates are the coolest thing in the universe.
Even
I
more
think.
than I have. You're, I think, more of an OG than I am. I've only been playing for 20. And I've only been playing Dark Eldar for 13. So I do bow my head to you, my good man.
Well, one of these days we'll have to figure out who bows to who. We'll have to
That's
have the
right. That's
King of the
right.
North. Yeah,
That's right. We'll see who Vec likes and who Vec does not like.
exactly. Who curries favor in the court that day?
Although I will say, I love, like, I use Core of the Archon models. You know, when I look at this list, I was like, this is a pretty, like, I have played the Dark Technomancer list. And, like, when I was playing my Dark Tech list, it was very similar to this list. Except for, instead of blasters, I used Heat Lances on the Scourge, right? And instead of, like, 4 Core of the Archon models, I only used 2. Like, I usually, or 1. Like, a Slith and an Urgol. It's, like, the max that I usually go for. However, I have been playing the Medusa every once in a while, and it's surprising how much damage that AP2 Strength 4 gun can do, like in a pinch,
Yeah,
right? Like if you need it to. And then of course the Ravagers, right? But now you went for Blasters on the Scourge for that like Strength 8, right? Like, you know, they
yeah.
make them a little sturdier. However, they're still pretty much a come down, shoot, and usually die like right after in a lot of
Typically, yeah,
situations.
yeah,
But they are cheaper than a Ravager, like much
yeah. They're
cheaper than a
100 points or
Ravager.
so.
Yeah,
Which
so
thank
that's
you to
really
the
good.
latest FAQ because blasters dropped in price.
Hmm.
I did have Heatlance Scourges. I had one squad in there for a while, and I really liked them for digging out. They were great for sniping a backfield character that might be hiding,
Yeah.
and they were great for digging Marines out of cover. The Strength 6 was a bit of a weakness, but still at AP5, anything you're hitting is not going to get a saving throw. And that was so I did have them in the list. But the other secret sauce that people kind of slept on were Mandrakes.
Oh,
Oh
so good.
my.
Love
Two
them.
squads of Mandrakes showing up and shooting 10 times and putting mortals on 6s to wound. I don't care about your 3-up invulnerable save or 1-up armor. I'm going to just spit mortal wounds at you.
And they have
And
an
then in combat,
incredible. Oh my goodness! Don't even get me started. Like 3 attacks each. Strength 4 -1 AP.
16 attacks out of 5 because of the Night Fiend.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, and -1 to be targeted.
Oh, in combat
They're
and in shooting.
yeah, they're
And
really really cool.
oh,
Just
I
think
love
if they
them.
got obsessions and Scourge's got
Well,
obsessions,
to be
how much
honest,
better they'd be.
they'd be great. Like Incubi, Scourge, Mandrakes. Like we're here, like drooling over what we're gonna get in the new codex, right? Like imagine
Oh
if Mandrakes had a pre-game move or a pre-game
yeah.
deploy, like getting up into the middle of the board and just messing up people's movement and stuff. That would be money. That would be
Do you
so good.
remember what they used to do?
Yeah, the 3 blips.
The blips? Oh,
We were the OG blips, Gene Seal Cult. That's
we
right.
were.
We had 3 different models, and we didn't have to reveal where they came in from until turn 3. And then
Yep.
we'd pick one of the blips and be like, haha, that's where they are.
And if you got close to them, we could either have them jump out or we could remove it. It
Yeah.
was so good.
Oh, I
But I
loved it.
think, I mean, can you imagine like a Mandrake redeploy? Oh, we're wish listing now, but oh, it'd be so cool. It'd be so
Redeploy,
good.
like, if you, and then I'm looking at, like, I've been reading through the Harlequin White Dwarf, being like, that'd be cool if we get something out of that. That'd be
Yeah.
cool if we get something out of that. Like, imagine if we just get a redeploy. Just like an army-wide redeploy that we can use no matter what faction we're using, what
Yes.
obsession, to be like, oh, you go first? Good. I'm gonna hide everything. Oh, I go first? You're I'm gonna be in your face.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Anyway, a huge shout out to everybody in chat. Thanks for tuning in. Okay, so it was 5 rounds. Is that correct?
Yeah,
6 rounds?
was
5 rounds. Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 5
One,
rounds.
2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 rounds to the final. The journey begins when you ended up playing Steve from Play on Tabletop. And you went toe to toe. Whoop, I don't know what happened there. But you went toe to toe with Steve from Play on Tabletop. Oh, let me just fix that there.
Hey, there I am.
Hey, there you
That's
are.
my big giant head.
Exactly. Haha. Okay, so this was the first match that you ended up playing with Steve from Play on Tabletop. Fantastic showing. There were thousands of people watching the stream. It was like incredible. It was such a fun time. And you played against Ultramarines. Now, historically, of course, Marines are Marines. They're really tough. They kill things. They basically, like, 5 Marines can kill, like, any unit we throw at them. Because they just have so many attacks. So, tell me a little bit about this match. What did you think going into it? He basically had all the stuff the Dark Eldar hate. Aggressors with flamers. Aggressors without flamers. Tough characters. An apothecary that brings people back to life. And then repressors, which are like a sleeper unit that are incredibly good against Dark Eldar.
Oh, they're so good against us. Yeah.
Strength 7, damage 2 shots, which is like the perfect weapon to kill Dark Eldar.
Yeah, that autocannons kill Dark Eldar like nothing else. They're so good. Yeah.
Correct. So tell me what your thought process was going into this game specifically. How did that, like, what were you thinking, that sort of thing?
Well, the nice thing about it is because Steve and I know each other very well, and we've played each other a lot, and we were dedicated to maintaining the same status quo that we play on our channel all the time, which is sportsmanship first. So we made sure that we knew there were no surprises with our lists. We talked a little about what we're capable of doing, and we absolutely understood going in what our capabilities were. So it really made it for a what happens on the table moment rather than, haha, look what I can do, surprise. And I think that was very important. And I think that carried through the whole tournament. Everybody, the sportsmanship and camaraderie that existed across every platform and every player was genuinely beautiful to watch.
All the take-backs and go ahead and do that. And like, it was just a showcase of how, like, us competitive players, even at tournaments, that's how we are. Like, there's like this unwritten rule where you don't want to be a jerk. Like, you just play your game, and if your opponent forgets something, if there was a clear intent, like, you don't want to win that way, right? Like, it just takes the flavor out of it. Now, I want to say, this was a great showcase of you losing most of your army and winning, right?
Yes,
like
it was. It absolutely was.
It was great. And one of the beautiful things is as soon as I saw there was a drop pod in his list, I was like, that drop pod's going to come bite him in the butt. And you used, like, the drop pod, you used it in the way that I would use a drop pod, which is you charge it, buy an objective or something, and you string out, and he can't shoot you, and other than the drop pod, right? And he can't do any damage to you, and you just hold that you hold that objective and don't get shot by a billion, like, intercessors, right?
Yeah.
However, I would have probably gone, like, a different way. I would have literally charged that drop pod with almost everything in my army. Like, Ravagers, Reapers. I would have literally just been like a little pin cushion surrounded by, like, Raiders and Venoms. And then I would have, like, spent a couple of CP to, like, fall back and shoot, and then get back into combat and, like, do that sort of thing, especially if I was in a pinch. But
I had actually thought about that. The way the table was set up, though, I had a nice piece of terrain in my deployment. We both had a very even table setup, which was also really key to it. And the one sort of blocking mid piece that I didn't want to have to try to maneuver around that, and I didn't think I could get far enough with my vehicles from my back edge to that drop pod and still be safe. So it was one of those decisions in the game that, well, I can keep doing this, and this is still going to keep me ahead. Steve played an amazing game. He really, really did. It was so hard to fight 3-up armor all over the place. But the keys for me, there were a lot of articles written about that kind of wrote me off in this one and said the Ultramarines are going to win. And I felt bad for Steve because Steve knows me and he's played my lists and he knows that I don't go down that easily.
Of
And I
course.
mean, I honestly assumed that Steve was going to win this game. I go into every game with this Bushido Zen idea that I've already lost and now I need to find how to win.
Yeah.
It's that whole samurai mentality.
Of
Maybe I
course.
watched too much anime as a kid.
But it's that
Um,
water, right? Like you're not
yep.
inflexible in your thought process. You go in,
Yeah.
you're not like you don't have any expectations, right? You're not like I'm gonna win or I'm gonna lose. You're like I'm just gonna see how it turns out. Like I'm
Yeah.
very much that way. You kind of have to be when playing an
You
army that's
accept it.
this fluid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You accept that a loss is
Mhm.
absolutely a viable outcome.
Yeah.
And then you find ways to make it work.
Yeah.
So then you take those opportunities. And I really expected to not pull this out. I thought it was going to be close, just like it was, but I did not think that I was going to win the game,
Yeah.
because Ultramarines are just that strong, and they've got
Super.
so many abilities, so many utility, and those suppressors. He played them well. He kept them away from me as long as he could, and I couldn't risk sticking my head out and failing, so I didn't.
Yeah.
And he bullied the middle board like he should.
It was
But
so close in that last little bit where his aggressor was on that objective,
yeah,
and you literally needed a high enough like move with that rack to basically steal that objective away from that aggressor. Like, and
yeah,
it came down to that like that last turn where you're doing the calculations because you did have second turn, which by the way, that's a whole other story. But having second turn with Dark Eldar is so powerful because
incredibly powerful.
we can
Yeah,
get on every objective if we want. And then counting it up and go, okay, so I need to stop you here, stop you there, take that banner down, stop this from happening so that I win, right?
yeah,
And at the end of the day, it was a very close match. Like it came down to the absolute wire. You
yes, it
only
did.
won by
4 points, I think.
yeah, it was a 4-point game,
Yeah,
right? That's how tight this game was. Because and this is the list for anybody who's worrying about it. The list is there. It's on the Las Vegas Nopen, webpage. 4 points. 4 points. How did it
yeah,
feel? With that win, did you feel confident? I know you just returned from surgery,
yeah.
so you were literally like medicated, sitting down, like.
The homunculi were literally working on me between shots. Yeah, no. I was going into turn 5, I think it was. I knew how close the game was, and I asked our team to give a score check. Their TAC, who was on scorekeeping duty, was doing scorekeeping and trying to keep up with their chat, which was with I think we almost had 3,000 people watching our game.
It's
It was
crazy.
crazy.
Yeah, it was
So it
nuts.
was
Yeah.
really hard for him to keep up with all that stuff. But I asked for a score check just to see where we were at, and then I was already doing the math in my head. By turn 2, 3, I'd already decided that I just need to keep holding, and I'm going to win on turn 4, 5. That's where this list is designed to do it, and I'm going to trust the list design, and I'm going to do this. And I asked for the score check to see where we were. Steve and I talked about it, where he got, because he made a decision to raise banners with his aggressor, and had he not done that, then the win would actually have been easier for me, rather
Yeah.
than move his lone aggressor into combat.
Mhm.
Because I stole a point from him when I charged with my Cabalites and didn't try point him, and forced him to fall back to shoot me, because then he lost his Oath of Moment point for not falling back.
Yeah.
So there was little nuances like that we were really, and that was part of the fact that we understood what each list did. So I asked for the score check, and I said, okay, so what do I need to do here? And then did that, figured out what I needed to do, and did exactly that. There was the rack advancing, sealed the deal. There was nothing else I had to do at that point, because I still had guns, I still had options, I still had things I could do to guarantee the win. But really, it came down to, if this happens, then that's it.
Yeah.
And that's what we rolled first, because typically in tournaments you'll do that as well. You're close to
Yeah.
time. If I just do this,
Especially if you count it out, like towards the turn 4, turn 5, like what I'll do is I'll take my score sheet and I'll go, okay, if my opponent maxes out everything that they have that's possible at this point, what's the score going to be, right? So it's very simple to do the math and go, okay,
yes,
what's going to happen or what do I need to do? And it's very important, especially in competitive play, to be mindful of stuff like that. Because if you're not mindful, instead of winning by 4 points, you lose by 1 point. That's like
exactly.
a 5-point difference. So important, especially when playing with an army that's as technical as the one that you were playing.
Yeah,
Right?
I always ask my opponents to keep score, and I keep score as well. And I ask them to keep track of my command points, and I keep track as well, because you forget things.
Yep.
And I'd rather lose because I lost than because of a clerical error.
Correct.
I've had that happen.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's
And
never fun.
again.
It's never fun when you go, oh shoot, you're recalculating points or whatever, and you go, oh, I didn't mark down my engageable points on turn 2 or whatever, which I
Yeah.
totally had because I did this and this, and then it's like, oh well, and then it just creates like a situation where it's like, it's always frustrating to have to go back. So keep track of your
Yes.
points. So then we go into round number 2, which again was at the Play on Tabletop studio. I've put up the link a couple of times. I'll put it on again. Of course, if you don't know who Play on Tabletop is, then I don't know what you're doing watching my show, because I think you're like 10 times bigger than I am right now, which is fine because you're amazing and I love it. Your 40K in 40 minutes format is incredible. I love the seasons. You got great, like the studio looks fantastic, and it's nice to see groups of players doing something that they love, right? And it's like the quality is excellent.
Thank you. Our Kill Team Challenger Series 2 that we've just started is in its fledgling season, and that's been a ton of fun. Really enjoyed that as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we've got more coming.
I can imagine. No spoilers here, though. Make sure you head on over and subscribe to Play on Tabletop. But then we have round 2. And round 2, we had the victor of TJ versus Brad Chester's list, TJ Lanigan's list, which is by far a filthy chaos list.
Oh, right? It's gross.
It's like a gross, filthy chaos list of doom, right? Let's see. Let's go. No, not full screen. No. Anyway, something like that. I don't know if it plays. Okay, so full screen. Sure, let's do that. That sounds fine. So this is you playing round 2. You're playing Steve, and I'm pretty sure. This is, of course, where like most people who are like naysayers for the Drukhari will say, hey, Steve didn't know what he was doing and he didn't play the list to its full capacity and stuff. I don't care who you are. That list, that chaos list is filthy. It's
gross. It's really hard to play properly.
It is. And TJ Lanigan, shout out to him. He makes lists that are very technical.
Oh, he's a mad wizard. He absolutely is. Technical. And a crazy good player. But that was one of the detractors to those technical lists. If you had a really technical list in this event and had to pass that off to somebody, were they going to be able to play it? Mine was single codex and one of the oldest codexes that are in existence right now. Yeah. Whereas what Steve was handed was 4 books.
Yeah. And he has to go flip and fight. You got Demon and Zinch and New Death Guard and Chaos, right? And he's got like everything going on at once, and he's trying to figure out like everything, and literally on like a moment's notice. Like
we didn't know until right before this game ended which list it was going to be, salamanders or demons. We assumed it was going to be the demon list. And honestly, I assumed I was going to be playing this. I had talked to TJ earlier in the week saying, it looks like I'm probably going to end up playing your list. And we talked about some of the things with it. And Steve did talk to TJ right before, what do I do here, man? Do I just raise banners on everything, give it a little rib? But he's like, no, just play defensive. And Steve did. Steve played very well. But the list is so dependent on doing exactly the right things in the psychic phase and exactly the right order.
Yeah,
and if you don't, and I reminded him, I mean, he said, oh, I guess I cast Weaver of Fates. I said, oh, make sure next turn you cast that immediately. That's your first cast because you want that free reroll.
That reroll, 100%.
And he didn't, and those are just those subtle little things that if you aren't familiar, you don't necessarily get it right away. He slingshot he put Magnus forward. He brought everybody forward. He had Magnus up to toughness 8 and Magnus with a 3+ invuln. That means Magnus should live. Like it really does. Magnus is my target in this list. Mortarion is never going to die as far as I'm concerned.
Mortarion will kill one thing a turn.
Yes.
Like, he doesn't really... Like, he goes in, he kills something. But remember, we're playing an army that has a bazillion little things that are going to die anyway. So Mortarion doesn't become as big of a threat. Yeah, he has some psychic powers. Yeah, he has combat. But he's got, what, a 12-inch move with some warp time, potentially.
Yeah.
He can't advance and charge. You can kind of pretty much see where he's going to go. You don't want to waste shots into him. Like, Magnus, though, will do 2d6 mortal wounds to you in a heartbeat, and then charge you, and then fly 36 inches like all over the place, or 32 inches. Like, he is by far the threat, like, in this list.
Yeah, and Steve didn't know about the stratagem to cast an extra spell for Magnus to warp time himself backwards. He didn't know some of these subtleties that had he known, it may have changed how he played it. But what it would not have changed is that Magnus is my target. And it doesn't matter if TJ's playing this list or if Steve's playing this list or if you're playing this list, Magnus is my target. I deployed specifically to take those objectives from Nurgle, and you can see the Nurglings. You can see on the overhead, I have two Venoms at the top and two Venoms in the bottom are both in position to take those Nurglings and clog them up so that he can't get to my Venoms, that I can use my Venoms to chew through those Nurglings, because 2 damage ignores their damage resistance. A lot of people are saying that, Steve didn't know what he's doing, or Steve threw the game. No, I absolutely tore this list apart. And I would challenge anybody to play this list against me. And I talked to TJ about it. I said, I'd love to play my list against your list because I think it would be a great game.
It would be great. And
TJ plays it different, right?
He does.
Totally different.
But I'll be here to back you up, Jay. I'll back you up here. When I look at that list, that demon list, I've played multiple lists against multiple demon players. My list is designed to smash this demon list.
Absolutely,
like with the amount of venoms, the amount of poison, the amount of like flying around, the amount of mortal wounds I can physically do, and shooting and combat, my list would hurt this demon list. It wouldn't be easy because because it's piloted well. But we are actually one of the better matchups against that demon list. Poison 3+ with a bunch of venoms, you just shoot and just do so many saves on something, it's going to die eventually, right?
There's 60 poison shots coming at you.
The wound on 3s with the dark tech, and they're 2 damage. So Magnus is feeling those. He's going to feel it. And even with the minuses to hit and everything, that Moss's mutagen, just being like, oh, 6, I don't even have to worry about rolling to wound that. That just automatically wounds. They add up over the course of the game. Now, you and I know this because we play these lists, right?
Exactly.
And we've seen that math in action. But other people don't put the 2 and 2 together in that moment, right, when it comes down to it. However,
and it plays totally different in his hands. TJ does not come out of his board edge and his home edge until turn 4.
Right.
He doesn't. He relies on his horrors and his Nurglings to do his work. In this mission, though, he can't do that. No. That's a hammer and anvil mission. I have a 50-inch threat. I deployed both Scourge Squadges. Or Scourge Squadges?
Scourge Squadges! You heard it here first, folks. New unit in the Dark Eldar book. Scourge Squadges!
Well, I wanted 8 blasters on the table to be able to move 14, to fire and fade 7. I wanted to be able to, if I went first, to punish him as quickly as I possibly could. Magnus goes down, and 80% of his offense is gone.
Yep.
Because Morty at this point is just slogging. The super chicken is still a super chicken. It's still incredibly good, but it's not a threat like Magnus is. Those smites, I've played against him too many times to let him live. And he has to go down on the first turn. And he did. And from that point on, I'm like, okay, Magnus is gone. The threat is semi-neutralized. And Steve tried to claw back as best he could. Once he got a couple turns in, he really started to find his stride with it. And he really did a masterful movement with the horrors and stretching, but unfortunately, I just had too much left, and it just blew through it. Steve is a very fantastic movement-based player. He is really good at positioning units where they got to go, and with only 3 big models, that's a different kind of movement altogether. It is not an easy list to play. I think he did as good as he could. But I was very, very fortunate in that I got to play my list twice against it, which was an advantage. I mean, Tank had the same thing. He got to play his own list twice, which is an advantage for sure.
Very big.
And I had a very sound game plan to take on that list. Once I saw what the mission was, once I knew that I'd be playing this, I knew what I had to do, and I set about doing it. And that's why I won the game. So
and you did win by a healthy 40 points or so. So I feel like regardless of who's playing that game, your list had a great chance of beating TJ's list.
It did.
They're both very technical lists. It might have not been by 40 points.
No,
right?
No, it
in
wouldn't
that
have
sense, I think that's more the inexperience part of it. Is just the margin by which it happened. But other than that, your target priority didn't change. And his inexperience did show in terms of scoring points with the list, which is kind of like how that works. Then that's 2 rounds in. Then you had to sort of hand it over, right? And this is when you had 0 control.
No control.
And now, now it was time to watch your list. Because it was 4 rounds, right? 4 rounds. Yeah. You had to watch your list be piloted by somebody else, and it must have been nerve-wracking to see your list go up. So, round 3, you end up handing your list over to Tabletop Titans.
Yeah.
Brian Pullen decides to play. I'm surprised that they made Brian play the list. But
well, Adrian's got a lot of experience with both,
mm-hmm.
and I think Adrian is more experienced with the sisters.
Okay.
So I think that's what the decision was. And then
Okay.
Brian took the Drukari, our Dark Eldar.
Yep.
But honestly, I think the list surprised Brian too. If I had to hand my list to anybody, either of those two gentlemen,
it would have
it's
been
in
great.
good hands.
Yeah,
They're
because
both
Adrian's
fantastic.
played Drukari. Like, it's one of the lists that he plays in the Harlequins, which they played earlier. It was the Harlequins versus this. Was it
the Blood Angels?
No, the Blood Angels. That's right.
Yeah.
And then they had.
I thought Adrian would have won that game. My challenge bracket was
so
done
close.
immediately. Round one, I was done. The only guy I bet on was me, simply just because I wanted to motivate myself. But I had Adrian winning that game, and it really came down to a single tactical decision, as I understand it, that he made, and Brian capitalized on it, and it didn't go Adrian's way. So the always be charging Blood Angels ended up going through because of that. Yeah. I expected the clown cars to go all the way. At least come up against TJ's list and really give it a go for. Because I thought TJ's list had the potential to go all the way because it is just a disgustingly good list.
Right, it is, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely, 100%. Hello as well to everybody in chat. We'll get to your questions in a second. We're here with JT from Play on Tabletop talking about his run or his lists run at the LVNopen, Drukari. Going out with a bang is what we're going to call it, or squadges.
Squadges, yes.
Squadges?
Third squadges. my squadges are doing so well.
Okay, and we talked earlier about how your list is designed to score points.
It is.
Now, Brian is a good player. He is a top-level competitive LVO player, right? Like, he is a...
Well, he won
Super Majors.
BAO, or was it SoCal he won?
He's won... I'd have to double-check, but he's won events, right?
Super Majors,
So... And then you could see how the nuance of your list was lost a little bit with Brian piloting it. Didn't really know what stratagems to use when. You could kind of see it. But something that he understood very well was scoring points and movement. And he used those two elements, which are the big strengths of the Dark Eldar, against an army of a bazillion Repentia and a bazillion Zephyrim, right? Go in and play the mission. And because he didn't really know the nuance, so he's like, when in doubt, play the mission.
Yes.
And he got slaughtered. Like, his army was just dying. Left, right, and center. And he didn't vect in the right times, and a whole bunch of stuff, right? And all in foremost, Brian was like, I'm just gonna get primary here. I'm going to stop you from scoring primary over here. I'm going to move around the table. I'm going to remember my scramblers, Nick Nanavati. I'm going to...
Exactly.
I'm just going to dig at Nick the entire time. Be like, it's like, if there's any... This is on a tangent. If there's any army that is really good at taking scramblers and scoring it every game, it's this one.
Yes.
It has all the tools. Like, how... Oh, anyway... It's like table flip right here. So tell me what it felt watching your list play against the Sisters battle, which is a very tough list. I've played the Sisters matchup. I also know that Dark Eldar have a hard time playing against Repentia. However, because Miracle Dice can't be vected, it's one of the biggest things, is you just can't vect Miracle Dice because... But you can vex some of the key strats they use, like right at the end, Brian Pullen went down and was like, I'm going to vect your stratagem that allows you to advance and charge.
Yes, that was huge.
That was a huge, good use of vect, that sort of thing, right? So you can kind of change the dynamic of the game, but it's a hard game. So how in the past have you approached the Sisters? Did you like what Brian did? Is there anything you would have done differently or anything that surprised you?
I think he did what he needed to and what he felt was right. I was very cautious when I was watching this game because a lot of people were throwing strategy tips and do this and do that. And I sent Brian a bunch of info. I said, here's some key stuff that I would do. Here's what the secondaries I would probably choose. And this is what I would probably do. But man, I trust you and I believe in you and go do it. The only things that I ever chimed in on the chat with were, anything that changed game state, that if he got a weapon range wrong, or if he got an ability wrong, or if Adrian was getting a disadvantage because of something, then I did not want that to happen and that cause an issue. So then I would message, at Tabletop Titans, no, the Archon has a power sword, not a husk blade, stuff like that. Because it's Brian's list at this point. He's playing it. I'm not playing it. I'm just here to watch and cheer. And boy, did I ever cheer. I cheered so many times. At the end of the game, he'd forgotten, because it's one of those little rules that Labyrinth and Cunning, it's still a weird one in that it's every command point spent by either side, you roll. And he'd forgotten for like 3 turns to actually do it. So at the end, it's like, I can't remember. I think was it Bridger that said, Brian, you've got like a bunch of command points to reach in.
No, it was just for that turn. He had been rolling it, but at the end of that turn, at the start of the turn, he'd used the 2 command point strat.
Yes, that's right.
To fall back and act as normal or something. So then Brian was able to roll 2 dice from that to get a command point. Got a command point back, put him up to 4, and then he was able to vec the advance and charge. Right, so
which was massive.
Which was huge.
Which was massive. Exactly. And that sealed the game for him at that point.
Yeah.
Stopping those Repentia from coming out of the corner, advancing and charging, and that was huge. And that won him the game. That absolutely won him the game. It was a massive,
it was close.
Massive
it was
trip.
Another really, really close one. When it comes down to the bracket itself, like that was 9 points, right?
Yeah.
So, that's an objective and a couple of points in a secondary, right?
Yeah.
But if he doesn't get his scramblers, Nick, then that's 10 poents and he loses by 1, right? So,
excuse me, ducking my head out for a second. I just dropped something.
Yeah, no problem. Right, so it was a pleasure. This was the game that, because you piloting the Dark Eldar list, I was confident that you knew what you were doing. You were just gonna play the best game. So I kind of ducked in and out of the games you played against the Ultramarines and against the Chaos. But this game, especially the last half, I was like glued. Because at first, the Sisters got really aggressive, and that second Sisters turn, Brian lost so much stuff, and I was like, I know he's not out of it yet, but does he know he's not out of it yet? Right? Or did that break him? But it didn't break him. He just focused on what he could do and just focused on the mission, which is what Dark Eldar do. We just play the missions really well.
Yeah.
We don't have an army left at the end.
It's a good lesson for everybody. Just because you're losing stuff doesn't mean you're losing the game.
Correct.
You never give up. You never quit.
And it's not like real war. It's not like you lose dudes and they stay lost, right?
Exactly.
Like you reset at the start of the next game, like you have your whole army again. Yeah. It's like you just press the quick load button in your favorite computer game.
You blow on the cartridge and put it back in, and away you go. Right.
That's it. It's just you don't have to. You should be no emotional connection, especially if you're a Dark Eldar player to any of your models. They're all going to die eventually.
Exactly. It's all in service of longevity, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I send you to war so that I can live longer. I mean, that's what Dark Eldar do.
Oh my goodness gracious! So it was a pleasure, Brian. And once again, it just shows the power of having that second turn with the Dark Eldar. Brian had that second turn, and he was able to, in that last turn, clench enough points with primaries and secondaries to calculate exactly what he needed to do to win, and he was able to had just enough to just win it. Right? Yes. It was crazy good.
And that's the point. In this format especially, it's not about maximizing points. It's about winning. And you need to win. And that's all you had to do. Just win.
Yeah.
That's the Danny McDevitt from the Mob Rules podcast school of thought is don't be bad and just win. That's his coaching advice. And you know what?
Don't be bad, just
really
win.
Viable.
Just win your
game.
Don't
be bad.
Yeah, that's how it works.
I have his card in my wallet still. Don't be bad. Thanks, Danny.
That's hilarious. So one of my main mantras playing Dark Eldar is everything's going to die. So it's not a matter of if your models are going to die. It's a matter of where your models are going to die. Yeah, that's the important part. It's when and where, right? Because you have the speed as a Dark Eldar player. You have the speed to essentially make sure that your models are where they need to be when they die.
And don't be afraid to sacrifice units as well. I did that against Steve. I dropped Scourges in my backfield to target his Flamestorm aggressors, and they didn't kill very much. They didn't roll very well, but because I dropped them in my backfield and put them in his face, it actually stopped him from moving too much closer towards me and getting in towards my semi-castle that I had. I sacrificed 100 points of blasters, which blasters didn't matter much at that point.
No.
I could have gone after Tigurius. I could have gone after other stuff, but I put that stuff in his way to speed bump him. Yeah, it's a 100-point speed bump. Sure, it's a lot, but it kept him from moving farther forward, and it pinned him there for another turn. And that's an important tactic to pay attention to. Is sometimes you want to force your opponent to shoot at stuff that they don't want to shoot at. Correct. And if you can make them do that, then they're playing into your hands at this point, and you're going to keep scoring.
Sometimes you want them to spend CPs, right? On purpose. Yes. Like I will charge, sometimes I'll charge multiple things in different places and activate the not one that would be the best one to activate to sort of encourage my opponent to use CP to interrupt, for example.
That's right? That nuanced gameplay, right?
Yeah, it's like little things like that, you know, as a Drukari player, we're very keenly aware of resource management, right? And managing those resources. And sometimes I'll blow all my CP in one turn, vecting 3 different stratagems in 3 different phases in one turn, right? Like I'll be like, no, no, and no, right? And that sometimes takes the wind out of your opponent's sails so massively that it just changes the game state completely. And then it puts you in control, puts you in the driving seat for the game. So the Dark Eldar win their 3rd match, right? Very close game again.
Very close.
And then once again, your list that you've created, you've put your heart and soul into.
Lack of soul?
Yeah, okay.
Blackened soul?
Other creatures' souls.
My blackened heart.
Into the concocted Drukari Dark Eldar list that this was. And it goes to Nick Nanavati, right?
Yeah, what a guy to play my list. Holy
guy to play your list, right? If anybody understands like different lists and plays, Nick Nanavati from The Art of War, you know, one of my fellow coaches on the program, the founder of like, you know, the Brown Magic on Art of War like training program. So he's playing your list. So what are your thoughts going into this?
I saw a tanks list and I went, 1 up, 3+ invuln. Custodes are so good.
Shield wall. Hashtag shield wall is what they were calling it the entire time. Shield wall.
Yeah, poison weapons into 1-up armor. Oh boy.
Yay! Yay. Good thing you can fail on ones, right?
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't think of a better player than, I mean, if I got Brian round 3 and I got Nick Nanavati round 4, man, like I've got, this is like 40K royalty at this point. Like, I mean, I'm humbled that these guys are playing my list. Not only that they're playing my list, but there's a chance he can win with this.
Correct.
But the one thing that you have to count for is that he's playing against John Lennon, and oh dearie my, this is going to be tough because John is a fantastic player, and these two players are both fantastic players, and they both know each other really well. They were playing Vital Intelligence, which is not the best mission for my list.
It's one of the hardest missions. And it's really funny because I got the opportunity to go into Deep Spain Games, right, which on Twitch, and I was able to shoutcast the final for the whole final for 3 hours with the, you know, 1,000 people from like Spanish-speaking countries that were like tuning in to the Twitch feed, which was awesome. It was such a great opportunity. It's really funny because Bizarro, who's one of the shoutcasters, he literally goes, I have to admit, he's a Dark Eldar player, by the way. He's like, I was trash talking this list the entire way, and now we're in the finals. And he's like, I feel like I've betrayed my, you know, Vector or whatever. So it was really funny. And thank you, JT, for making a list that played the mission so well, because I got to shoutcast your list in the finals, played by Nick Nanavati. It was great, really fun. And
I wish my Spanish was better. I would love to watch that replay. My Spanish is atrocious. I can order beverages and I can find the bathroom, and that's about it.
Hey, you know what? That's what you need to survive when traveling.
That's exactly all you need to survive.
Yeah. Now I know Nick as a player. I've played both Nick and I've played John, right? And I've beaten both of them, right? However, I knew that Nick was going to play conservatively.
Yeah.
Right? So when he got the second turn, I was very pleased because I was like, if there's one thing this list needs against that Sisters list is second turn. However, John is also a very cagey player. And he literally just put out exactly what he needed to and left the Rhinos back with the Repentia and didn't really commit much. He just went for those points. points, and just a little bit too much, leaving a whole bunch in reserve so that the Dark Eldar couldn't like overrun his position and get into his backfield and like mess up his back objective, which was like a very real thing. And I feel Nick, he had a chance to win, if anybody did. I was looking at it going, if I or JT played this game, matchup-wise, the Dark Eldar have all the tools to win this game.
Yes.
Right? 100%. There was one key moment that I think Nick made a mistake that cost him the game, and that was when he didn't vec the auto pass on morale for the Custodes that were left with one guy after murdering like the whole squad was shooting. Yeah. So what happened was John rolled, failed morale. Nick let him go back because apparently John didn't know what the leadership was, which is fine. We do that in competitive play. However, he then auto-passed morale. As Nick, I would have said, well, I'm just going to spend my 4 CP to vect it, and then the roll that you rolled for morale will kind of count, right? So at that point, the model is still dead.
Yeah.
Right?
And that model was huge.
Was, while we stand, we fight, it was holding that objective, which gave another primary point. And it gave a vital intelligence point, which was the secondaries. So that would have been an 11-point swing right then and there. And that OBSEC model came into play later in the game.
Usually came into play.
Because Nick had to then divert a lot of resources to try kill that 1+ armor, 3-up invulnerable save model, which is like a whole squad of dudes in a single model, right? Yeah. And I think that was probably the point where I was like, okay, that, if anything loses him the game, it's that point right there.
I tend to agree. The Scramblers, as much as we're going to tease him about it, it didn't matter after that point. Because I watched this game, and I had a couple people say, oh, would you have done it differently, or would you have this? And even in chat, and I'm like, you know what, in all due respect to Nick, it's his list at this point, and he's going to play it the way he plays, because he doesn't 100% know my list, but he 100% knows his opponent. And that is so important. Knowing the list is good. Knowing who you're playing against is also extremely important. Super. This felt to me like a 1995 Stanley Cup final between the Detroit Red Wings and the Left Wing Lock and the New Jersey Devils and the Neutral Zone Trap. It was so technically defensive. These two put on a clinic of what 9th edition board control should look like.
Board control and speed. Like they were playing without a chess clock, like there was a chess clock in play, and they got the game done in 2 hours. Which is
they knew what they were doing, because those first 2-3 turns were all about position control, push, counter punch. I mean, Nick was forced to charge in with Venoms, which I almost never do unless I really have to. And he was forced to, because John was pushing stuff forward that was making him have to do this. And he counter punched well, and they kept it back and forth. It was literally that wait for someone to make a mistake. And I think you're right. That was a crucial error. The moment that he made that mistake, John capitalized on it. And that just turned the game completely. And that's, I mean, if you're a hockey fan that remembers the late 90s, that's 1-0 games were all the rage. I mean, the NHL Board of Governors hated it. Fans didn't like it because they want to see goals. But if you're a proper football fan like me, like
you want to prevent your opponent from scoring as much as you score, right? Like
loving the jacket, Scary, by the way. Just got to shout that out there. I mean, that's proper football.
Thanks, buddy.
1-0 is a solid score, and 1-0, it's still a win, and that's the key. It's still a win, and that's what these guys brought to us. I thought it was an amazing display of high-level chess play on a 40K tabletop. It was fantastic to watch.
It was really, really good, and it was really cool because you could see the ebb and flow of the board state. Like, if you look at the overhead camera, you can see how each unit projects like an invisible control zone, right? Where, like, it was like a flowing like this, and Nick was trying so hard to punch through the top corner past that unkillable Captain of Doom, right? To kind of like punch around the side and hold those 3 objectives. And this mission is really hard already with the hold 2. And I've recently, with Team Canada, practiced this mission twice against the new Death Guard. And it is tough against an army that's like really beefy, right? That's just going to sit there. So those Custodes were like the secret sauce to that list. Nick had the tools to deal with it, but it's like in such a fine, like tightrope of a game. Of a very little mistake like something like that can completely change the tempo of the game. And I think at that point, that's where it was. Yeah, regardless of getting scrambles or not, like, you know what I mean? But he had to deal with what he had at that moment in time. And it was a masterclass. It was really cool to
It really
see
was.
both armies go. And yeah, Nick lost by a couple of points, but at the end of the day, what a run for the Drukari. And it
Absolutely.
was it was a treat to see, it was a treat to watch, to have a Dark Eldar Drukari list written by yourself, JT, the Archon in the North, right? Go all the way to the finals of the Las Vegas Nopen.
That's pretty
So
cool. That's
that
pretty
is
cool.
pretty
Yeah.
badass, is
Yeah.
what I'm going to say. I'm going to demonetize my video. It's badass.
That's hilarious.
Just for you, buddy. Just
Thanks,
for
man.
you. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to open the floor to a couple of questions in chat. Huge shout out to everybody who's been sitting here watching with us while we chat with JT. Make sure you check out Play on Tabletop. If you haven't already, you've been living under a rock, please go check them out. They do they do some crazy awesome high quality content, gaming content, 40K content. So go check them out. There's always some cool stuff. I can't wait to go and play a game with you at some point. We have to have
happening. It has to happen.
And we have to put it in like a space mat with like the spires of Comara everywhere. We can just have like this massive like space battle in the Dark City with like Ravagers and planes and
if my man Tycho Imaga is listening, he's our terrain guy this year. We've specialized our roles a little bit this year because we're growing so fast that it's hard for us to keep up. I think we're at almost 123,000 subscribers, and this is just starting year 3. So we've just gone. It's been fantastic. What a run! And so many of the people in your chat are fans of ours, and vice versa. It's just great to see this community coming together. But Tycho, Comra, let's build some.
That'd be really cool, and then we could do like this massive thing. Maybe we get the spider involved, and then it's like this 3-way Archon extravaganza. Anyway, let's just that's where our head goes. Okay, so JT says, Jared, if on YouTube, he asks, if you could get one wish fulfilled from the codex, what would it be?
Oh, this is the rumor that everything's going to be in the same detachment is already a big one for me. I don't like.
It's not a rumor. It was confirmed by GW. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I don't like being pigeonholed into the triple patrol. I've never been a fan of it, but it's how we have to play, and I don't like that. It's a holdover from 8th, so I'm okay with it. It is what it is. If I had one thing to pick, aside from getting a Vect model, it would probably be that the mercenary rule gets updated somehow. At present, Incubi are better as Ynnari than they are as Dark Eldar, and I think that's wrong.
The reroll wounds is so clutch.
It is.
It's so clutch, yeah.
If Mandrakes could gain an obsession for a stratagem even, up to X number of squads or Scourges, I mean, how good would Scourges be if they could benefit from the Blackheart plus, reroll 1's Hell of Spite? Or the Living Muse.
Well, who knows? We'll see. Because with the new core mechanic, I feel like it depends what is considered core and what is not. Although Scourge do seem to be like a core Cabal style unit. Like every Cabal would have a bunch of Scourge. So
they're supposed to be the elite of the elite. They hunted from the spires.
They just have the moolah. They have the money. They're like, put some wings on me, bro. And they're like, I want to fly around.
Mandrakes are supposed to be super scary. Like
super scary.
You don't go up in Kamora because the Scourges will get you, and you don't go in the streets after dark because Karadruk is going to cut your head off, right?
Yeah, for his little pile of skulls.
Yeah, exactly.
Shadizo asks, he says, what do you think was the weak point of your list, and what would you swap out? What would you swap it out with? Like, do you think there's a weak point in your list or weak unit that, in retrospect, you would sort of tweak it a little bit and kind of shuffle a couple of points around?
I don't think there's a weak unit because every unit does its role. I think there's a weakness is close combat in my list. I went whole hog on ranged and to keep you at distance. If I had the ability to speed bump better, I would go with that. I would have something. I mean, I'd love to run witches, but the problem with witches is they die to pistols.
They die to a breeze. Is what
and Marines have pistols. That's what people keep forgetting is that, I hope witches go to a 4-up invuln in engagement. I think that makes perfect sense because then they would actually see a lot more play. Because right now,
holding somebody pistols.
Holding somebody in position means nothing. Even guardsmen with pistols are wounding you on 4s. It's just not that good. So I'd like to have a better close combat presence, but no, I think the list is really designed to take advantage of scoring as much as possible. And if I start messing with that too much, I'm going to lose a lot of those synergies. And I think I'm very happy with this final evolution, because we're getting a new book of my list to come to. So
it's the final countdown. Okay.
Way to demonetize that video!
Hooray! Yeah. I told you I was already committed to this. So that's a great answer to that question as well. Now, personally, for my list, I've put in Ginblade Archon and a Bloodglaive Succubus to really sort of fill that countercharge role. And it's not a lot, but it's just enough that anything that kind of gets through the main lines ends up having to fight like Mr. Killy Archon. He just goes around like hacking stuff. Like my favorite thing was 6 Scorptech destroyers. Killed them all in a single round of combat. He was like 6 wounds, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. He was like, bleh! I was like, holy crap! I was sold. I was instantly sold.
That's so good.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm a Necron player. Is there anyone besides Siegler that you would suggest following for high Necron gameplay?
Good one.
There's a couple of ones out there. I know Idic Beer plays a lot of Necrons. He has a lot of cool Necron ideas. Make sure you check him out on YouTube. And
Michael Timpe used to play a lot of Necrons too. He still does. He's pretty solid.
Yeah, so you just have to resurrect him. Find him under the dust somewhere.
Yeah, there's a lot of them out there.
Yeah. Skari, Joshua says, Skari, I noticed that you played bombers in your list, but JT certainly did not. I've seen them in and out of lists, which is the verdict. They seem strong in 9th, but not punchy enough to me. I played bombers in my list because I had Ravagers in my list, and I play a lot of WTC. And if you know anything about WTC terrain, it is heavy. Like, there are L's everywhere, like obscuring terrain everywhere, which means if you want to hide from my Ravagers, you can hide. So they're constricted by their movement and their shooting, which makes it very easy to kind of mitigate the damage that they can do. Yes, they're really good. The bombers give me an opportunity to nuke something that I need to nuke on the first turn. Like, they're one of the only things I'd go very comfortably into 20 Necron warriors with and go, I'm going to kill, 10 of those Necron warriors before I even start my shooting phase. And those don't get to come back. Right, and I can just kind of commit to something, and it changes the game state. It does enough to like force my opponent to think about something that they're not normally going to be thinking about. And then you can then deep strike them, especially if you fly them off the board. Now that you can like bomb and fly off the table on the same turn, and then they deep strike, which means that on very heavy tables you can kind of deep strike them to where you need them to be on that like second or third turn, which is excellent. So I have find a lot of use for them that way. However, they're very expensive. They're like 420 points for 2. So, is it worth it? I like them. They just change the game enough, and I basically put pressure on other parts of my list to allow that part of the list to exist. But I don't know what you think, JT.
I hate planes.
Okay, fair enough. Moving on.
Honestly, it's that simple. I don't like planes. I don't like playing with the planes. I have them. I think they look pretty. I think they look cool. I just don't like playing with them. It's another level of thinking that my old man brain can't handle.
Because spinning and twisting and not flying off the table.
Now they can fly off the table. They might show an appearance, but I don't like having to think about that level of play. And I just don't like them. That's just personal.
That's fine. Yeah, it's completely fine. Hey, your list did amazing. So Kayla says, question: why do you use the Medusa instead of Sliths and Lamians instead of Urgles?
The AP2 Assault 4, I like those, and I mean, they're action monkeys for the most part. If they ever, they kill a drop pod in Steve's game, which was pretty good. But they're I like the models I made for them, to be perfectly honest. They look cool. My Lamian model is actually used to be a Duke's Liscus until somebody took his head off. Like, actually stole the head off my model. He was painted like the Thin White Duke. He had the double lightning bolt over the eye, the whole David Bowie reference. And then I used him as my Archon for the longest time because I put a proper head on him. And I'm like, you know what? I need a Lamian. I don't like the Lamian model because it's fine cast, and I find that they break too easily.
So fiddly.
Yeah. So I converted him into a Lamian. I put a cool Juggalo clown, old school raider with the big hair. and that's my Lamian now. But I really love my Medusa models that I've made, so they're one of the reasons in the list. And that assault for Shurge 9-inch range. Hopefully, it goes to 12 in the new codex. AP2 is actually really surprising.
Good to just kill chaff. Like even like against a tank or something, like a strength 4, you need 5s to wound. Like you'd be surprised, like it'll do 1 or 2 wounds to a tank, and then the tank dies. You know, like it's just got enough punch. It is expensive, like more expensive than most, but you know, and people don't know what it does. Like they look at what the hell does a Medusa do, you know, and they're like, I don't know, I don't care. I'm gonna kill this venom, and then the Medusa goes up and goes, look into my eyes, and then the guy just goes, William asks, he says, please ask TJ about his Harlequin pants. Majestic. So TJ, what about them?
Who's TJ, Scar?
I know, JT. I apologize.
Is it the TJ Squidges? I think that's
Squidges. What it is. JT. Oh my goodness! I bring you on to the show, and I butcher your name. No.
Yeah, it goes in the. I'm looking at my old dwarf fantasy army. It goes in the book of grudges.
Oh no! What have I done? You can't come out of that book. That book is.
Will Matthews, I love you to death, man. Yes, the Harlequin pants. They were originally purchased for my wife. She still wears them, but sometimes I sneak them out. There's a company in the UK that makes them. I don't necessarily want to say the name because they're not sending me free stuff. But you can find
free stuff and get the promo stuff. Yeah,
I just ordered more stuff from them. They actually, look at that. It's a Dark Eldar snood, so I can cover my beard, which is really nice because masks on this. I mean, this is all sticking out.
Yeah, makes sense.
But no, I love the pants. They're incredibly comfortable leggings. I think you have some as well. They're I think they're Soaring Spite. They're the half diamond, half blue. They're really cool. I love them. I absolutely love those pants.
Awesome.
I'm known for the pants. In the battle report I played against Jim Vezel, where he brought his beautiful soul drinkers at our farewell to 8th. I wore the pants. I wore the pants for that battle report. It was to try to distract him. It didn't work.
Didn't work, of course. It didn't work. He's just so focused on the game.
He's such a good player. Yeah.
Andreas asks, he says, would you change anything in the list if you have to go up against a new Death Guard?
Well, hopefully I don't go up against a new Death Guard until we get a new book.
Okay, so that's the answer there. New book, new list. I love it. Perfect. Tanya says, JT will be coming. Will he be coming on the morning show? Please. So I do have a morning show where we sit down and hobby and chat with Tanya and Alfarius and myself. Normally we have a plethora of guests, but you are welcome to come on.
That'd be fun.
I'm booking into late February now, so I'll message you and we'll make something happen. Okay, love it. Steve says, LOL, Archon with a power sword.
Yeah, why not?
Strength 4, yeah. It's the same as it's about. It just has better AP than the Huskblade. When you're playing against when you're playing against Marines, AP3 versus AP2 actually makes a big difference. Yeah.
And he's not there to be in combat. I mean, he can be. No. He can pull you up, but he's got the Riddle Living Muse. He is literally 80 points of reroll ones. That's what he does. Always 4.
Does it annoy Scary and JT? Sorry, we're only going to do a few more questions here, folks, because we have to finish up. Sometimes seem like they encroach on Drukari's game design space. That the Harlequins that encroach on game design space. I think they're different enough that it doesn't. But there's a couple of key like Eldari style things that every Eldari has. Kind of like every Marine book has Marine stuff, right? That you have fight, fullback, and act as normal. You have Fire and Fade, which is like my favorite stratagem of all time, and you've got like lightning fast reflexes.
Yeah.
And other than Dark Eldar, which you do have, is the redeploy, but that's only if you're playing, Cabal of the Poison Tongue right now, which, exactly.
I'm old enough to remember when Harlequins were in our book.
Yes, that too. I remember the old Rogue Trader chapter approved Harlequin book, which was like test rules, the beta.
Yeah.
And there was, and a 1,500 point list was 15 models. It was 100 points per model, and that Harlequin list with the Great Harlequin and that list would table a Marine army in 3 turns.
Oh, they were 15, so powerful.
15 models.
Yeah,
it was so silly.
So powerful.
Oh my goodness! I actually have an old box of them, like the metal, like the box of 20 or whatever.
I have metal Harlequins too. Yeah,
New in box and everything. Yeah.
So cool.
So good. Octo Senpai says, I'm building a freebooter list with Gazgul. Okay, boys, Gretchen, Commandos, Mech Guns, Daka Jets, Burner Bomber. What do you think of it? I think orcs love pretty much everything you can put in their list. And I think you just have to have fun playing orcs. If you don't have fun playing orcs, you're playing the wrong list. Like in my humble opinion.
Yep.
Oh, well, that's the end of the questions that we have time for. If you did ask this question, thank you so much. JT, it's been an absolute pleasure. I loved breaking down your list with you. Do you have any final things that you'd like to say as we
I think
go
it's my turn to bow to you, Archon Skari. Not a full bow, though.
Okay, not yet. Yeah, keep my eye on you. Don't you dare.
But please come check us out at Play on Tabletop on YouTube. And if you really like what we do, please support us on Patreon, because that's how we can keep putting out this content. Keep your eyes peeled for some of the cool stuff we have coming. Mid-February, our new season of 40K and 40M is starting. And it's starting with a bang. And it's starting with a surprise guest that I cannot talk about, but I guarantee you're going to love to see on our channel. So that's a big deal for us. And then, as hopefully as COVID starts to lessen and vaccines get out, we get more players in. I'd love to have the Archon of the East, of the Northeast, come onto our show, and I'd love to do battle. I'd love to do a series of battles. I think that would be cool. I mean, if I fly out there and then you fly out here, and then we meet at some tournament.
Like 3 or 4 battles, 4 or 5. It'd be a whole series. It'd be like the Path of the Archon, relived. You could actually see the strife and struggle and the backstabbing and imagine the narrative that we could form.
We could absolutely forge the narrative.
There you go. Shout out to you, Paul.
They did a fantastic job this weekend. They really did.
Man, I want a huge shout out to the crew.
Yeah, they had us on, and wow, Adam, Paul, Falcon, the whole team. What an amazing show! The
whole team, the Ocho,
and to everybody for watching us, and thank you for listening to me yap about a game that I play. Yeah, pretty cool. But check us out at Play on Tabletop on YouTube, please.
Link is right here on your screen. It's also going to be down in the links below, as always. Thank you so much for tuning in. You can always share your cool hobby content with the hashtag JustPutPaint on it, so that we can all take a look at the cool content that you're working. I, of course, have been Skari the Blade. The Blade, you see. Because if I don't like you, I will cut you. No. Anyway, this has been a great look into the top Drukari list, we're going to call it. That's it. Nobody can say otherwise. That's it. The top of the top of the top with the squidges. And with the squidges. With that, we're going to call it a day. Thank you so much, JT, for coming on.
Thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure. I've been Skari, your grateful host. This has been a JT. Signing off until next time. Skari out and JT2. The Dark
Kin.
There you go. Woo! Bye, everybody.